The Sassanid Persian Empire of Iran-Shah is one of the biggest empires in history. The Sassanians recognized themselves as the continuation of the Achaemenid Empire, and the reason they believe that is that the Parthians didn't get rid of the Greek culture that Alexander left here, and that is why they were recognized as the continuation of the Achaemenids. But in this clip, we're not here to talk about the Sasanian Empire's history. We want to see what happened in the end. How is it possible for an empire like this to be taken over by the Muslims? In the year 602 AD, Josro II, the Persian king, realizes that Maurice, the Byzantine Empire emperor, has been executed, and that was by the people around him. Since Josro II and Maurice were friends and considered allies, he was not happy about it. And that is why he got his army ready and started heading towards Constantinople. He goes all the way to Constantinople and nobody steps in his way. About 18 years after this happened, around 620 AD, the Sassanid Empire reached its greatest length, from one side all the way to Constantinople, all the way to North Africa, in the south all the way to Yemen, and from the east all the way to China. But Josro II had a son that he was not stoked about, and everybody knew that. And his son is known in history as Kavat II. We could say Kavat is the person that basically destroyed not only Josro II, but the entire Persian Empire. He groups up with a bunch of traitors and enters the palace of Josro and arrests him. And to make himself as the king, he executes his father. To also narrow the path of being king, he also kills all his brothers and half-brothers, and that includes Mardan Shah, which was one of Khosrow's favorite sons, and he was going to be the next king. By killing pretty much his entire close family members, including his half-brothers, he thought he could easily become the Persian king. But he was completely wrong. When news goes around that Josro II, the Persian king, has been killed, that created a lot of tension throughout the empire, and it started a civil war. Kavat couldn't stay king for a long time, and he was killed by others. After Kavat dies, in a span of 4 years when the civil war was going on, 14 different kings were replaced, but they could never get this empire back together again. When we get to the year 632 AD, there isn't enough boys in the house of Sassan to become king anymore, and that is why 8-year-old Yazdegerd III becomes the Persian king. In this case, the Sasanian Empire is not what it used to be, and Kavat II, a complete traitor, has ruined a 400-year-old empire. It's around that time where in the Arabian Peninsula, Islam is taken over, and it's becoming more powerful day in and day out. In the year 633 AD, when Abu Bakr is the caliphate of the Muslims, he realizes that the Persians aren't stable. He hires Khalid ibn Walid with his army to head towards Iran-Shah. In the same year, Walid enters modern-day Kuwait, which was Sasanian territory. At that time, an Iranian commander with 40,000 men realizes that Walid is coming this way, and he starts heading that way to stop him. Walid was pretty smart. He knew if he started a war in modern-day Kuwait, he was for sure gonna get crushed. That is why he retreats and enters another way. The army of the Sasanian Empire back then was very heavy because they moved with a lot of people with a lot of supplies, and they were considered heavy. But Khalid ibn Walid didn't have anything special with him. They had soldiers, horses, and swords. That is why Walid keeps going back and forth, and he forces Hormuz to keep following him. Walid's goal was to make the Sasanian army tired, and he gets exactly what he wants. Eventually, these two armies face each other in Kazima, Kuwait. And when Al-Walid realizes that the Sasanian army is tired, he attacks first. In the beginning of the war, Hormuz, the Persian commander, is fighting in the front lines, and he gets killed very quickly. Even though the Persian army's commander had died, they do not retreat and keep fighting. But since they didn't have a commander anymore, they get defeated. But this didn't mean that the Sasanian Empire was defeated, because another Sasanian army is waiting for Walid by the Tigris River, and he knew that Walid is heading this way. 3 months after the war in Kazima, Hormuz meets Karen by the Tigris River. Since Walid was feeling confident after the first victory, in the beginning of the war, he sends his men to kill Karen before the war starts. And this is the way we could defeat this army, because when an army doesn't have a commander, you could defeat them easier. And then once again, 40,000 Persian soldiers are fighting the Muslims without a commander because he was killed in the beginning. 20,000 of the Persian men die and they're forced to retreat. But next to Tishfun, the capital of the Sasanian Empire, there is an army waiting, and its commander was Andar-Zoghar. Andar-Zoghar started heading towards Walid, and another Persian army that's heading from north to south with the commander of Bahman is heading that way. After Josro II, the Persian king, was executed, and 4 years of civil war in Iran, Iran's Shah was not stable whatsoever, and that means most of the Persian people were mad about the sitting king, and the person at fault was Kavat II. Because of Josro II being executed and the civil war, regular Iranian people had lost hope, and they turned into traitors. That is why a lot of spies in Iran told Walid that Andar-Zoghar is heading your way, and behind him is Bahman. When Walid realizes that Bahman's army is a few weeks out, he orders his men to attack Andar-Zoghar before Bahman heads this way. These two stand in front of each other, but none of them decide to attack yet. The entire night, they're facing each other and none of them begin. Walid had 8,000 fighters and 7,000 horsemen. And that's when he thinks of a trick. He tells his horsemen to make a lap around the Persian army and go behind them. And that allows us to sandwich the army. When Andar-Zoghar realizes that half of the Arab army has left, he decides to attack Walid. This is the trap Walid exactly wanted, because as they're fighting each other, his horsemen are heading behind the Persian army. Andar-Zoghar is also defeated because of this, and he decides to retreat. You might ask, why is Khalid ibn Walid such good warriors and they defeat everybody? One of the main reasons is that the warriors would share the goods they receive after a war. And after the war, the prized possessions would be shared among the warriors. And in terms of religious reasons, they were told if you get killed or win a battle, you will go to heaven. After Walid defeated Andar-Zoghar, he started heading up north towards Tigris, but he decides to head back because he was getting too deep in Sasanian territory, and the main Persian army is next to Tishfun. They stay like this for 1 year, and then eventually a Muslim commander by the name of Abu Ubayd Saqafi decides to head towards Kufa, but that's when the Bahman, the Persian commander, is waiting with his army. Bahman defeats the Saqafi army and they decide to retreat back. It's at this time that Omar is the new caliphate of the Muslims. After the Persians defeated the Muslims in the Battle of Bridge, the news reaches Omar. Omar gets extremely angry and tells Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, one of his best commanders, to attack the Persians and show them no mercy. In the year 636 AD, Waqqas with 30,000 men starts hurrying towards the Persian Empire, specifically Qadisiyah. And in Qadisiyah, Rustam Farrukhzad, one of the best Persian commanders at that time, is waiting with his 50,000 men. When Rustam and Waqqas reach each other, they don't begin the war, but they begin negotiations, and the negotiations continued for months. Rustam didn't realize that time passing and passing is not helping him, because new Muslim warriors in groups are heading towards Waqqas's way and joining his army. And the reason for the amount of soldiers that would add it to Waqqas's army was that they were told to go fight for Islam. Rustam had 50,000 men in his army and 15,000 of them were horsemen. He also had 40 elephants in his army. Abi Waqqas had 30,000 men and 8,000 of them were horsemen. Eventually, on the 16th of November 636 AD, around 6:30 in the morning, Rustam Farrukhzad decides to tell his army to take 10 of the elephants and attack the right side of Waqqas's army. After this attack, Rustam tells his men to attack the left side as well. Unfortunately, the traders of the Persian Empire helped Waqqas in this battle as well. The Muslims weren't familiar with fighting elephants and they didn't know what to do with them. The Iranian traders taught the Muslims how to defeat elephants, where not only does it not attack them, but it damaged the Persian army as well. They say the only thing you should do is attack his eyes and make them go blind. And when they go blind, they will go crazy and kill their own army. And that's exactly what happened. The war has been going on for 3 days, and day in and day out, more people are joining Waqqas's army to help win the battle. And the more soldiers the Persians kill, they're replaced immediately. On the 3rd day, Rustam realizes that throughout the day, the Waqqas army is getting bigger because there's more people joining it. And he tells his men, we have no choice but to finish the war today. We either have to reach victory or we die today. On the 3rd day, Rustam tells his men to get to Waqqas and kill him before the battle starts. But Waqqas's army had him surrounded, and it was extremely difficult to get to him, and from whichever directions the Persians went, they were blocked off. Early in the morning on the 4th day of the battle, Waqqas chooses few of his best men to get to Rustam before the battle starts and kill him. And exactly when this is occurring, there is a sandstorm going on, and it puts Waqqas's army in an advantage. Waqqas's men immediately get themselves to Rustam and kill him. When the commander of the Persian army is killed, the flag of the Sasanian Empire, called the Daraf-Shakaviani, is now in Muslims' hands. The Persian warriors always look out for the flag that's up during battle, but when the flag is gone, the warriors know that their commander is killed, and when the commander is killed, the warriors have no hope anymore. And on the 4th day, on November 19, 636, the Muslims defeat the Sasanians' main army. Waqqas defeated the main Persian army, and Rustam Farrukhzad, which was a Persian commander, considered a genius at war that had never lost a battle, was defeated. In the year 642 AD, the last battle takes place in Nahavand, Iran, and also in this battle, the Muslims defeat the Sasanians. And after this, it's when the prize of the Sasanian Empire is opened up to the Muslims. After the Muslims defeated the Persians, the rule book came out. The Iranians were told, you either have to practice Islam, or you can pay, or you can die. Normal people are turned into Muslims. They didn't have money to pay the fees, and they didn't want to get killed. A few people paid the fine and kept their own religion, and another smaller group didn't want to pay the fine. They didn't want to change religion, and they also didn't want to die. And that is why they left Iran. Most of them went to India, which are called the Parsis, which are Persian Indians. You could say after the Iranians lost the battle, the traders that helped the Muslims were not too stoked about this, but it was too late to not be stoked. After taking over the Sasanian Empire, a lot of other stuff happened, which will take hours on end to make a video about.